Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome back to Adobe Live. Hope you're all doing well. I hope you've been enjoying the streams today. We had Voodoo Val kicking off the day with the Photoshop Daily Creative Challenge. We had Sandy and Steve, I believe it was, Pell from Pelvetica, which is super
clever.
Super clever. Well played, Sandy and Steve Pell. And then you just finished watching Peter Del Tondo. Yeah. I always get his name wrong.
It's okay. Sandy called me Joanna at the last stream. So.
Oh. That's a bit wrong.
Yeah.
But now you're joining in me, Howard Pinsky, with Josh Iwata. Welcome back.
Hi.
This is your, what, third time?
Third time.
Nice.
I'm a vet now, yeah.
Welcome back. Good to
Glad
have
be
you here. And a big hello to everyone joining us live in magical Behance world, including Joe, who says, "Yay, Howard." Me. We got Richard and Ariana, Cars, Greg, Voodoo Val, Gal Mai, that's a great name, Kevin, Mana, Nyasha.
Abhishek.
Look at you. Nicely done. I was
still be wrong. I could see you were skipping that one.
I was trying to sound it out. I apologize. I'm terrible with names.
Just cherry picking the easy names.
Yeah.
Joe,
Julia, Sarah.
Iwata.
Oh, Sarah.
Hey, that's my sister.
Nice.
Aspiring designer.
Nice. Awesome.
Yep.
Welcome, everyone. And if you are tuning in live, let us know where you're tuning in from. We're streaming from beautiful San Francisco this afternoon. It's a little bit gray, a little bit cloudy.
It's nice.
But not too bad. Where I left on, was it Tuesday? It was 107.
Yeah, I'm from around the Portland area, Oregon. And it was like 100 degrees there, too.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Thanks
so,
climate change.
Yeah, we got a great stream for you today. So we got in about half an hour, one of you will win 100 stickers from Sticker Mule. Who doesn't love that? And look at this. Everyone is yelling at me that I need stickers, so I got one massive sticker, but I didn't realize that part of it is green. So you can kind of like see through
fuzziness going on there.
I know,
yeah.
not a good idea. But you have anything?
No, I'm a clean, no stickers guy.
All right. I can dig that. And then about half an hour before the show ends, we're going to be diving into Discord, and we're going to take a look at some of your challenge entries. So Peter Del Tondo had his Daily Creative Challenge this morning, and if I hop over to my screen, down here on the challenge page, which is behance.net/challenge/XD, here is today's challenge. Design a recipe collection app curated from top chefs around the world. So do that, have fun in XD, maybe we'll get some inspiration from Josh today, and we'll take a look at some of that stuff. So, without further ado, I'm gonna hand it over to Josh to talk a little bit about himself, what you do.
Great.
You've gone through this spiel before, but have fun.
Okay, all right. Well, as usual, I always have a little slide deck.
Nice.
I'll be quick about this part. Yeah. So my name's Josh Iwata. I'm a UI UX designer. This is kind of a little visual of, I guess it goes that way, of the course of my career, which I started life as an illustrator. I moved into web design, and then I got into UI UX design, and then eventually into kind of like leadership positions at tech startups.
Ooh, that's fancy.
Yeah, so the last company I helped found was called Setmore. I was the primary designer. I helped start it with a small group. We grew it, and eventually I was CEO of that. I left that almost 2 years ago and joined another startup called ClassHero, which is where I'm at now. And I'm technically the COO, but with a small startup, you end up doing everything.
Right,
so,
of course.
I do a lot of product design on that, and actually my first stream was the children's math app that is a big part of our business. So if you go back and look for that, you can see me design a kids math app in the Adobe Live library.
Yeah, it's so bright and colorful, I love it.
Yeah, that was fun because I actually hadn't designed a kids app before.
Well, there you go.
I don't think anyone else had on here, so it was different. So the case study is the theme of today. What do you call that? The theme, I guess, yeah.
Sure, we can.
Yeah, I don't know.
With that.
Adobe you guys, I like that you leave it open for interpretation. You're like, it's the case study, and then you can choose what to do with it as the designer. So what I wanted to do, other designers have decided to make a piece for their portfolio. I like to use real world clients when I stream. And so it's a little bit meta, but this will kind of be a case study of how to make a case study. So how do you go about creating your Behance case study, which when I think about work that's on Behance, which differs from the Behance platform from other design platforms, is it really allows for this really in-depth, long-form presentation of the work where you get to show behind the scenes. You can show as much as you want, versus just maybe a snapshot of it. So it's a great format for doing something like that, but I am definitely a designer guilty of showing just the end result many times, which I think kind of devalues the work to a degree.
Yeah, and I'm kind of guilty of that too. We live in the Dribble world, right?
Yes.
Where we upload these really nice looking end
Yeah.
results to Dribble, and people hit that like button and it goes crazy and we feel great about ourselves. But most clients or potential clients don't really care. I mean, they do, but they don't really care about that final piece, because anyone can make something really nice. But knowing how you got to that process, that final result, what challenges you face, who you've been working with, what colors, why you chose colors, that sort of thing is super important. And clients love that stuff. And I'm really excited about this case study because we do these daily creative challenges for Photoshop and XD every single day, Monday to Friday. And at the end of it, the idea is that you will have this really interesting, sometimes it's progressive, sometimes it's just individual challenges, but you'll have these really nice pieces that you can put on Behance, you can put on Dribble. But, putting together a case study of all this stuff you've been doing over the last 2 weeks is super important, especially if you're looking to get into the industry.
Yeah, and a good example of that is I just met with a client a couple weeks ago, and they were willing to pay thousands of dollars to have a designer come on and do basically a trial to see how they work, how they think, because they said, we look at the end results and all of them have beautiful portfolios, but how do we know they're going to work well with us?
Yep.
How do we know that they understand process and UI and UX? So at any rate, hopefully by the end of this, you'll have a better idea of how you can display and show that.
Nice. And if anyone has questions for Josh throughout the stream about case studies, design, UI, whatever it might be, throw them in the chat and I will ask him.
Yeah, absolutely. And people seem focused on your fashion here.
Oh, cool jacket.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Jacket, your haircut.
There you go.
Can
I
you
did cut my hair.
Can you get your shoe up here?
Oh, I have pink
Show
shoes.
the
Can we
XD
do
colored
that?
shoes.
There we go. Wait, there we go.
Yeah, look at that. Styling.
I'm old. I can't do that
love
very
it.
much.
Okay, so to begin with, and we will get into XD shortly, but I wanted to go over the 5 commandments of a good case study. And I kind of put these together. I browsed around on Behance. I tried to look for examples that I really like and that helped made sense of that long form format. I think it's so easy to just kind of throw your work up there and be overwhelmed with the blank canvas and to put anything and everything you've worked on, and then it becomes kind of just an aesthetic overwhelm versus a structured story. So the 5 commandments. The first commandment of a good case study is to use design thinking. And I've been surprised in conversations with designers how many of them are not really familiar with this. Most of them have heard about it, but it's something that's kind of come into the common vernacular in the last probably 2 or 3 years. And to go over it really quickly, design thinking it's not something someone invented or created. It's actually, you can find all sorts of different graphs that are variations of this. This is from NielsenNormanGroup.com. And it is more of an observed phenomenon of how humans have been able to design good solutions. So you could apply this to nearly anything, and if you think about it, and I'll go through these steps really quick, you can think about it even as like a caveman designing the first weapon, right? Like empathize. So I'm hungry. We need to make something for hunters to be able to kill the woolly mammoth. Define. What do we need? Something for them that's stabby, right? That they can stab something with. Ideate. So they make versions of the spear, short spears, long spears, flat stones, sharp stones. Prototype. They build them and then they start testing them. And they start throwing these spears. Eventually they figure out, stabby, sharp spears with long handles work best. And that works on the micro and the macro. You can see humans have evolved the spear for thousands or hundreds of thousands of years to modern day weaponry. So design thinking can really be, and has been, applied to anything that is designed. And if you are a designer, and even if you don't know this, you were already using this. This is how it works. And if you skip these steps, that's probably when we arrive at solutions that are not actually very good, and they don't work well, and the chair's uncomfortable, or the client doesn't like the design. It's probably because we took a shortcut and we didn't go to one of these steps.
Yeah, and that's kind of the problem with the Dribble world. Even though I love Dribble, don't get me wrong,
agree.
but
Yeah.
so many of us, including myself, just hop into Adobe XD, we start designing, we just make it look as absolutely pretty as possible, but then you show it to people and they're like, okay, great, but how am I going to get to this part of the application? Or how is my developer going to actually build this thing? And then you realize, oh, it looks great, but it's not going to function very well.
Yeah, and that's one of the things I'm a really big advocate for is as designers, we have to be aware of our process, and when you're aware of your process, you can improve your process, and as a result, you can create better solutions. Yeah. And that's what design's about, is creating the best possible solution that you're capable of creating.
Yeah, by the way, someone needs to do some sort of a cartoon or just like a strip of a bunch of cavemen on, just doodling on a cave wall, little things, little spiky things.
Mm-hmm. Doing design thinking, applying design thinking.
Yeah. Did they have a design system back then?
They did. They just didn't know it.
Oh, there you go.
Someone, I don't know how to pronounce that. Judita? Sorry, I'm butchering your name. How do you feel about publishing case studies before the product development is finished? And that's something you do have to be careful about, and I've done that. I actually published a case study on it. I added it to my portfolio before a launch, and I actually had the client find it and then get mad at me and say, that we're announcing this and we're gonna release it in like the sequential order, and our competitors don't know about it. And so you have to be really careful. Get permission from your client. And as you get into really big contracts, sometimes they will ask you not even to put it on your website for a year or more, sometimes never.
Yeah, that's
There's
true.
Certain agreements that say that.
Yeah, I've done work for clients in the past that I just can't even talk about.
Yeah. Ooh, intriguing.
I know, right? Dushy's saying a job for Pablo Stanley. Yes, he needs to do that. Do you know Pablo?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he's a great illustrator. He's just done one recently on. They're just animated butts that you can use in your presentation.
You had me at animated butts.
I know, right?
Yeah.
But he does these really cool. He works for InVision. Just don't say anything. But yeah, he's a great illustrator. But he would be perfect for like a caveman style illustration.
Mm-hmm. Okay, someone
with
hit up
maybe
Pablo.
Animated butts.
And they go hand in hand. So design thinking can be used for designing a chair. It can be used for designing a spaceship, and it can even be used for designing your Behance case study. So the second commandment of the good case study is to tell a story. That means that you went through a process all the way through to get to the end result. And showing just the end result isn't the full story. And I think it is important to actually tell the story kind of from beginning to end. Mm-hmm. I think we're in a, which takes us to the next one, which is show your process. I think we're in a culture of behind the scenes. We love behind the scenes. That's why so many of these new shows have done so well with showing how batteries are made to the behind the scenes of real estate or the crabbing industry. And so showing the behind the scenes of something, it adds value to your work. It's the same way as if you watched the table that you eat off of be created and crafted by a carpenter.
Okay.
I'm like,
I was gonna
what
say
are the
caveman.
people who work with wood? You're just thinking the caveman.
Yeah.
If you were through that process with the carpenter, you would have a lot of appreciation for it. If you saw the tree got cut down and planed and all that. So it's the same thing. Seeing process helps add value to work. It also helps you put on that kind of lab coat as the expert in what you do as a designer when you can communicate your process. And that's really important too.
It's also very interesting because I feel it's probably not as bad as it was back in the day, but I feel there are still clients and people who want to hire designers who have no idea what it actually takes to design something. They see a logo, they're like, oh,
absolutely.
My cousin can do a logo in 10 minutes. Why am I paying you $800 or $1,000 or $5,000 for this simple logo? But you show that process. One thing I love, especially on Behance and case studies, is when they have pictures of their sketchbooks and there's like dozens, if not hundreds, of little tweaks of this logo leading up to the final thing. And then they do that final thing with many different colors and different iterations. And it's like, this is what designing is. This is why it costs several $1,000s for a simple logo. It's not just like, oh, I have the perfect idea for a logo. Here it is, done.
Right.
It doesn't happen like that.
Even though on these live streams it does.
Well, we're magical here. We have like little pixie dust in the air. It makes us better designers.
Yeah.
Yeah. Someone's asking, I'll graduate soon and really confused. Me too, I'm always confused. Many designers have their own website which shows their work. So is it a good idea to have our own website or portfolio on Behance or Dribbble is good?
I think it is a necessity to have your work up. And if that is on Behance or on your own website, I think that's kind of up to you. But I do think having your own website can help you express yourself a little more, tell some of your backstory, more of kind of personally about you and your work ethic and process, any of that kind of stuff. But I think Behance is a fantastic platform to show your work. I think Dribbble has gotten better at it, but for me as a creative director or someone who's helped hire designers, I don't want to just see the snapshots. I want to know actually what it looks like in your process and how you work, and not just the polished, finished designs, because even those can be faked, right? You can grab finished work, or maybe you had a creative director that helped you a lot. So, hi Lily. I see Lily on there too saying hi.
Hi Lily. And if you are posting on Dribbble, someone I think Gal just said, also post a link to the full project.
Yeah.
Whether it's on Behance or your website or whatever it might be. Because I know for a fact that the Adobe Live team is on Behance all the time looking for potential designers, and we really look at in-depth process and behind the scenes like you were talking about.
Yeah.
Not just great shots, because that doesn't really tell us much.
Right. Okay. The fourth commandment is to use dimension.
Ooh.
And that is, I'll get to more of that later, but you'll see this a lot on designs, especially the Behance kind of case studies where you do a lot of layering, and it allows you to show design elements that you've worked on in the background or the foreground, even if you don't want to show like just a finished shot of that particular piece of work. So it allows you to be a little playful with how you incorporate the look and feel of the work that you've done. And I tend to think about that too. It's intimidating to work on a blank page if you're not thinking about it in layers. But when you start thinking about it as layers and dimension, you can start to organize what needs to go where.
Yep.
The last thing is to let it breathe. And
yes,
I say this a lot when I'm critiquing work, and I'll probably say it as we critique work. But so many times especially as you're beginning design, you think cramming more is better. But whatever you think you need in terms of white space, you usually need to like double it, and then it feels good. It sounds like you understand
all the
this.
time, and especially when I'm browsing Behance projects. I know a lot of designers, and I was definitely part of this group a while ago, think that you have to show as much as possible on one screen. And it's not always the case, because sometimes the more you have crammed into a single small area, the harder it is to actually digest some of that stuff. So I'm sure Josh will talk more about this as he's going through this, but if you have something at the very top that's really enticing, very eye candy, right? People are gonna start scrolling, and you gotta keep that flow going. You don't wanna just cram everything into a small area. Just kind of distribute it, breathe, just breathe.
That's right. Okay. So the case study that I'm going to be doing is on a client called Berkson, and they're a really awesome development company. They had been around for, 15 years, but they had never actually branded themselves. They were kind of just doing project to project, word of mouth, and I worked with them for helping them with, I'll go over on the next screen, sorry. So day one, day two, today we're going to do a project overview of all the things that we did, and we'll actually start structuring the page. And I'm gonna do, it sounds like kind of overkill, but I'm gonna do a wireframe for this case study. And the reason really is not, I don't know that you always need to do that for these case studies, but I do think it's helpful.
Yes.
And think about how to structure your page. And it'll definitely be helpful for this as we explain, how do you structure and do things.
Yeah, and that goes back to the looking at a blank canvas idea that you were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
Is it's difficult. It doesn't matter what platform you're on, it's very difficult to look at a blank canvas, start adding elements, and then having everything flow. If you're wiring things up, you can just use boxes, you can use ellipses, whatever it might be, and you can just kind of, it almost zooms you out just to see everything at once, and just really helps you envision what the final thing is going to look like.
Yeah, I really think wireframing and block framing, that kind of stuff, what it does is it allows you to, it limits your decision making.
Yep.
You don't have to think about color, you don't have to think about typography or imagery. It lets you just focus on just the specifics of layout and flow, and that's kind of the point, right? Okay, so here's a quick overview of the project that I did for Berkson Development. I did their brand positioning, which I'll show you that really quickly. I'll just show you kind of screenshots of all, not screenshots, we'll go into XD and I'll show you some of this. Brand positioning, logo design, mood boards, wireframes, and then design mockups.
Yep.
And before I get into that, I wanted to talk about this, which right there, which is the proposal. And it's one of the things that I think becomes a lot of times kind of a black box where designers don't ever show their proposals. So I'd like to give you a quick sneak peek of what the proposal looked like for this client. They gave me permission to use this project. I did remove the pricing and their names from the proposal. But I have a template that I use for any new project, and it basically looks like this. All right, let me get out of here.
And I think this is going to be very important for brand new designers because these are things that a lot of people don't think about. They just want to design, but unfortunately, or maybe, I don't know, there's a lot more to being a freelance designer or even working with a studio than just designing. You got to go through proposals, pitches, contracts, a lot of paperwork that's not really exciting.
Yeah.
But it's so necessary, especially if you want to protect yourself later on.
Yeah, absolutely. Having the paperwork, and I started that early, even before I really had many clients. I was figuring out how do I write a proper proposal and how do I do a contract that will protect me. And I have, and I think every designer has run into one or two clients, not very many throughout your career, that it's a sticky situation and you're glad you had the paperwork in place so you could get paid, right?
It's always good.
So I start off with a title page. And again, all of this kind of formality, part of this is showing that you are the expert. And that's how the client sees you. It doesn't matter if you're doing a $400 website or a $4,000 website or a $40,000 website. Clients see you as the designer and they're not. And most of the time, they don't know anything about the design process. If you can show a proposal, that's the first sign that you sets you apart from other designers and shows really that you are an expert in what you do. So I have a really simple cover page prepared for the name of the client and their email, prepared by me, and I put their logo in there. And then if it's a bigger proposal, meaning more than like 3 pages, I'll do a little table of contents, which is, again, it's just a kind of nice little formality. So this basic structure is I do a project overview, and this is really, so before I write a proposal, I'll have an interview with the client and a phone call, and that's free, that's included. I'll do an interview with them, and then the project overview is really me regurgitating what their need is, and then saying what I think the proposed solution should be. And you don't have to get too in-depth into the solution, but you need to understand their need, and that's where I do that, is on this overview screen. The next thing I do, especially with a bigger project like this, is I actually have a section that I use in my proposals for all the clients that talks about the design process. And for me, this is that design thinking. It's a version of that, which is the discovery phase, so I can let them know what's going to happen. We discover in the first phase, there's this download process. I collect all the information. We architect, we create the wireframes, or we create the early sketches of the logo. We do the design mock-ups. And then it also includes, what kind of things are included in this phase. Phase 4, we build. Phase 5, we deliver, right? So I found this has been really helpful for clients, no matter what the type of project is, to cue them in on like, this is what design thinking is, this is what the design phase looks like, right? Timeline and deliverables. I tend to, and everyone does this differently. Some people will do flat rate, where they'll just say, this is the overall price and this is what I'm gonna do. I like to do ranges for each individual item inside the project. So I'll do the brand positioning doc and I'll describe what that is. And then I'll say about how long I think it will take. So I give ranges. I'll say 1 to 2 weeks and about 10 to 15 hours. Logo design, 2 to 3 weeks, 20 to 30 hours. Mood boards, 15 to 20. So I'll do that, and at the end, I will give them a range. So 105 to 145 hours. 105 is on the low end, 145 is on the high end. And if we're gonna go over that, I will let you know, kind of thing. Yeah. So I'll talk to the client verbally about that.
Yeah, it's important to be in constant communication.
Because
the last thing you want is, to quote them, let's say, I don't know, $5,000 to $10,000, and at the end of it, you're like, oh, by the way, I went over a little bit. It's now going to cost you $30,000.
That's
they
right.
They will not be happy.
No, you have to keep your client informed, and a good rule of thumb is if you reach 80% of your budget and you're not 80% done, you need to let the client know.
Yeah. Terry's asking, and maybe we'll touch on this once you're finished with the proposal, is can you go over what you mean by protection, getting paid or right protection?
Well, both. I mean, one of the things, so this is the proposal, and there is a separate contract that usually you would have a client sign that has all the little details, and you can get fairly generic kind of freelancer contracts. A lot of times the companies will give those to you. They'll say, this is our contractor agreement. And that contractor agreement is going to protect you and make sure that you get paid. It'll talk about things like non-disclosure. It'll talk about what you can use in your work. So there is a separate contract besides just the proposal that is used oftentimes. And I do have a page here on the end that it's an acceptance of the quote. So it's just making sure that, this is the paperwork, it's the proof. Even an email is proof if you went to small claims court. But it's an acceptance of the quote that they actually signed it and that they agreed to these rates and the agreement and whatever else you put into your proposal. And then I typically collect 50% upfront before I start. So that to me is a really great way to get the client committed. You get money up front, so you're not working, especially if it's a 6-week project,
right.
You're not working off breadcrumbs
for
nothing. And it's interesting because at the beginning, the client gives you 50%, and you haven't given them anything, so you have all the power.
Yeah.
By the end, they have all the power because you've done all the work and they still have 50% of your money. So it makes you both have to agree and share the power dynamic, which I have found has worked pretty well. How have you done it in the past?
I've typically done, probably not 50%, but closer to like 25%.
Yeah.
I probably haven't been designing for clients at the scale that you are, but you have to have something because like you said, you don't want to be working for weeks, potentially months, and not have any money in your pocket because as a freelancer, you're sometimes working on one project and that's it. You have no other source of income coming in, and that's tricky.
Yeah.
It's very tricky to balance, and you will sometimes run into clients who say, no, we're not paying anything up front.
Yeah.
Which, sometimes you have to say, well, I need something. I got to live. I got to eat.
Right.
How do you deal with that?
For me, the clients that I work with, I actually haven't really had that come up, but I had them negotiate on the amount. So they'll say, 50% of a, $10,000, $12,000 project, maybe we could give you 30% right now, or 25%. And so I don't know that it makes sense that you have to have 50%. That's what I typically do, but I do think that you should get something. Collect something. It definitely changes the power dynamic and it helps you feel more comfortable. And Ryan has just said, I found 50% makes both parties accountable during the whole process.
Yep.
Terry says she likes working in thirds, he or she. I can't see by the
I think it's
they. Sorry.
Judita is asking, do you tend to inflate your time estimates just to leave yourself a margin of error, or are you usually on point?
Well, as you can see from here, I give a range. So I do put the upper end at a higher amount than I think I will go.
Okay.
So yeah, I guess I do inflate them a bit. And I do think that you should always do that. I mean, some of the agencies I've worked with, they say they basically go to the high end of their estimate and then they inflate it by 50%. And then that's the rate they give their clients. So, because something always comes up, that's kind of the rule. Oh, there's fireworks going off.
There are fireworks, which is exactly how Val probably felt when a client has refused to pay her after doing a whole project. So we're going to be right back. We're going to take a very quick break, and when we come back, just type something in the chat. What should we ask them?
Oh, anything, huh?
Anything, whatever.
I don't know. I can't think.
What's your favorite food? Sure.
Okay. Oh, it doesn't have to be design related.
No, it doesn't have to be
favorite
anything.
food.
Or color or whatever. And one of you will win 100 free stickers from Sticker Mule. We'll be right back.
Okay.
And we're back, and all of you are chatting. We've got Munir and Julia and Kroll. Kroll, that's a good name. Sounds like Game of Thrones.
I was just thinking it sounds like something from a Marvel movie or
pizza. Kroll loves pizza. Me too.
Mm-hmm.
Have you ordered food yet from the cafeteria?
No.
Oh, okay.
Good pizza?
It looked good. I got a salad, but the pizza when I walked by looked really good. Yeah. Grapes are good. I'm allergic to most fruits and vegetables because I'm allergic to the trees and the plants that they grow from.
You are?
I am.
Really?
Not deathly allergic, but Kushboo. Congratulations, you just won 100 stickers from Sticker Mule. Someone from Behance will get in touch with you shortly. If you did not win, go to Behance. Go to stickermule.com/Adobe Live. Link is right there, and you get 10 stickers for $1. Yeah, so
Awesome.
I'm allergic to most fruits and vegetables. Some more than others, like mangoes and melons, I'm very allergic to.
Oh, man.
But things like grapes, I'm very minorly allergic to, but I found that I love just snacking on grapes while I'm working. It's just a nice...
Because it numbs your mouth and it helps you be creative.
Maybe. Maybe.
Weird.
I know.
Oh, it sounds like
it's a pain.
that sounds like a long tail lie you told your mom. Like
No.
you wanted to get out of.
What's
like,
funny is
vegetables,
I used to eat mangoes all the time when I was a kid,
Oh.
but it progressively got a little bit worse.
Yeah. I've got a daughter with allergies.
Yeah.
Not allergies. It's rough.
That's terrible. But if they're
It is
cooked,
hard.
it's fine. So I eat like cooked broccoli, cooked asparagus. Yeah.
Cooking changes the
Cooking does
chemical
change.
makeup.
Yeah,
Okay.
it kills all the weird tree juice.
Tree juice. All right. So we've gone over the proposal. We're going to jump into doing an overview of the actual project. So Berkson Development is the name of the company. I'm going to show you guys actually, let me go to preview first. There we go. So this was the brand positioning doc that I put together. I'm not going to go over the whole thing, but it was a slide deck. And essentially, it was helping them kind of define their place in the agency world. And it was a decent amount of work of going through, explaining what all the different types of agencies are, helping them figure out what type they were, giving them examples of other people's work. And in the end, it allowed them to come to the decision of what they were and what they weren't, which was they are a development agency, meaning they can say yes to these things and no to these things, right? So it was a really helpful exercise before we got into, and this was one of the solutions of kind of the problem and then the solution, and then some of their values of like, we are
not
this,
hipsters.
we are not. They're not, yeah. These guys are not, they were like, do we need a fancy office? Do we need to move into like, Southeast Portland? I'm like, no, that's not who you are. Like, you're amazing engineers, which is what they are.
Yeah.
They're a really, really good development company. And so we helped define all this before we moved into their logo design. Let me get into XD finally. So we went through the logo design process. And for me, the way I do that is typically 3 different concepts, and then they pick one, and then we explore that concept and nail it down. So these are kind of, if you go left to right here, these are the different concepts and some of the end results. So I typically present it in this document where I say what the concept is, what it's inspired by. I show some examples of it in kind of applied in different scenarios. And then on dark and white. So this is the one that they ended up choosing.
I like it.
Which was this B with these kind of code pieces taken out of it. They liked that it was bold and it was kind of chunky. And as coders, they immediately knew that that was supposed to be code. Even
Okay,
though
that's
everyone else
interesting.
may not have. Because he said, oh, well, that was just so obvious to me. And I was like, I don't think that would actually be obvious to most people.
No.
But because you're a developer, that's what you thought about, right?
When you mentioned it, I was like, oh, okay. But beforehand, I just thought it was some like interesting pattern.
Yeah. Well, I'll also show you a trick that there's another reason to do sequential, revealing of when you present something.
Yeah.
And that was, they saw this and then they saw this. So they saw it was supposed to be smart, bold, clean, inspired by code, cars, and sports. Because that's their client base is like Porsche, it's like big sports car companies. So by the time they got to see the logo, they'd been really prepped to see some ideas in it. And that's one of the things as a designer that I feel like we can do a really good job at if we're intentional about it, is prepping clients for our work and explaining ahead of time. So I did the logo for them, and then I did mood boards for them. Let me show that. And a design guide.
Ooh.
So, why is this not full screen? So I do a mood board after a logo, which helps them determine a direction they want to go. It's colors and it's just basic application. I think I have a mood board template on my website. Maybe we could give that link out tomorrow at some point.
Oh, those were the one from last time, I think.
Yeah. Of how to put together a basic mood board.
Yeah, let me see if I can find, because I recently shared, I had to like search through all my tweets because someone was asking for it. Just about a week ago. Now, let me see if I can find it. I'll share it in the chat.
And then I put together a design guide. So that is their logo. how it should or should not be used, so the deconstructed kind of variants of it, and then what not to do with it. Don't tilt it, don't make the code pieces green, don't put weird colors on weird colors and that kind of thing.
Yeah, it's pretty ugly.
You'd be surprised how, as soon as you hand over a logo, people just start doing terrible things to it.
And if you look at the style guides and the brand guidelines of any large company, they all have something like this because they don't want people using their logos and looking like this one, right? The green with the red, and it's like, ugh, what is that?
Right. I'm sure Adobe has some.
Oh, I'm sure.
Very
I know Apple
detailed
does, and
uses of-
Microsoft does, and everyone. Because they got to protect their guidelines, and not just for legal reasons, but also aesthetic reasons.
Yeah. Gal says like a brand book. That's exactly it. A design guide, style guide, brand book. They're all similar. So I put that together for them. And then I moved on to wireframes. So I'll give you a quick overview of the wireframes. All laid out nicely here in XD. I love with XD too that it's just so stinking fast.
It is really
fast. You could
fast.
put so many elements on a page, and I saw the testing document you guys used that had like 1,000 artboards.
Oh, it's crazy.
And it was just like lightning fast.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Do you present in XD? Because Ryan's asking, do you prefer presenting in XD? I know you're using Keynote.
Yeah, I mean for that kind of stuff, but for showing designs off, I mean publishing your prototypes and then sending the link to a client, yeah, I will do that.
Yeah.
And I'll let them click through it. Before I let them just go click through things though, I will present it over video so that I have control of what they're seeing. And
nice.
I'm kind of a control freak like that.
Of course.
Oh, and Howard just posted the link to my website with the resources. And I will add this Behance wireframe. And if people are interested, I would even create a template of that proposal and put that on there too if people would like that. So let me know if you want the template of the proposal, and I could put it up there too.
Yeah. Richard's asking, what sites do you gather images for your mood board?
The mood board, I think the first thing I do is try to define the color scheme with the client. And then, I mean, let me go back to that. Many times I'll pick words that I think will define that brand. So I think I did have that in the logo concepts, right? Smart, bold, clean. Where this one was modern, authentic, intelligent. So I use those as kind of guiding lights as I'm searching for imagery. And because it was smart, bold, clean, I kind of knew that I wanted this techie, blue and green. That dark gray also helps make it look pretty kind of high end.
Right.
So, I mean, applying a little bit of like color theory kind of comes naturally after you've done a few different palettes. I wouldn't probably go for like pink and orange. It doesn't feel sleek and tech, right? Orange can actually with the right grays. And then I'll go look for imagery that matches that. So, I mean, smart, bold, and clean, I knew they're an automotive company. They do a lot of design for automotive companies. I know they're coders. So naturally, cars, code, agency photos. This is the kind of stuff that will naturally go on the website, even if they're not the exact images that will go. And I tell the client that these are not the exact images that will go on your website, but they are, they'll inspire the look of it.
Right.
That end result, right?
Yeah. And I think if I remember correctly, last time you were here, you were creating a project or almost like a proposal for a client, and overnight you submitted it to them or you showed it to them. Was that you?
Yeah.
Yeah, and they actually chose the one that many people thought they wouldn't choose.
Yeah, we had people vote on these two mood boards. There were two different styles.
Yeah.
And people voted for the one that everyone liked, and then the client chose the other one.
And that really kind of drives home the importance of having multiple proposals and multiple mood boards, multiple logos, because you just never know. You can have an idea in your head, and thousands of people watching in chat could all agree, but then you give it to the client, and they just like, no, I want the other one.
It was funny because they chose the other one, and then I said, oh, I did a survey on Adobe Live yesterday, and what did they choose? And I said, the other design. And then they were like second guessing.
Oh, no.
Then they're like, oh, maybe we want the other. But yeah, I do think it's important to give let the clients make some decisions and to give some variance, but not too many. You don't want decision overload. Don't give them 10 or 18 different logos.
Please
Give them 3 logos, and then do 10 variants of the one they pick, right?
Yeah.
I think that's a way better path to go down.
Totally.
Okay, so let me get to the mock-up. So I did the wireframes, and then here were the InDesign mock-ups. And I work directly from my wireframes. You can see, actually, let me go over to my wireframes. I'm gonna grab this, and I'm gonna put it right next to my mock-up, because this is actually how I work is all. No, where did that do? It put it underneath. How do I grab
Little
that?
dots right above it.
This one?
No, right above. There you go.
These?
There they are. Yeah.
Ah, hard to see at that scale. Okay. So you can see my InDesign mockups, not InDesign, but my InDesign mockups, look very similar to the wireframes. So I do pretty detailed wireframes, and I use those really as these kind of guiding lights.
Is that typically the case where your designs kind of mostly mimic the wireframes?
It is for me.
That's the ideal scenario, right?
That's the ideal scenario for sure, unless you're doing very rough wireframes, which a lot of people do too.
Right.
I think it was one of the, I'm not sure who it was. Someone was streaming on Adobe, and they said they always use Comic Sans as the font.
Oh,
They don't want their clients to get hung up on.
It was either Chris
the
Cannon
design.
or Peter Del Tondo.
Yeah, I think it was Peter. And
Might have been.
so I do pretty detailed wireframes though, and it does make this process of doing these mock-ups like super, super informed and easy, and it lets you just focus on some of the smaller details.
Yeah.
So let me turn off the layout here and I'll zoom in here. So this is one of the InDesigns. So we used that, and these are the building blocks of good design process. We used the mood board to inform the colors and the look and feel. We used the wireframes to inform the layout, and everything builds up to where the mock-ups themselves actually are, you can worry about just the little details of design pieces, right?
Fancy.
Yeah. And so the actual build out, and they've actually built and launched the site they just did recently. This is the actual website now. Oh, do I have Wi-Fi? Adobe Live Wireless. There we go. So they did a good job.
It looks very similar to yours.
Yep, they worked really closely to get it, fairly pixel perfect.
And what's the process like when you're finished your wireframes, you're finished your InDesigns, and they approve it, it's ready to go, then what? Because obviously there's this gap, there's this disconnect between you, the designer, and their development team. So how do you fill in that gap?
So for me, looks like my internet's not working.
Oh, that's sad.
That's very sad. Oh, it's because I'm supposed to be on Adobe, yes. That process, it can be tricky, and I've had a number of sites that, some are even in my portfolio, that when they got built out, they do not look like the designs. And that's really disappointing as a designer. So I try to give the source files, but also doing like that design guide I did, which says, these are the pixel fonts for, this is how to use the logo. I mean, all of that stuff is important, but I do typically work with the dev team. So I hand off designs, and then I wait however many weeks they need to build it out.
Yep.
And then with this particular client, they sent me the build out, and they had me basically audit it and say,
oh, interesting.
These are all the things that are wrong with it. This is how you can get it closer to the design. And we went through a process of what I call a design audit to get it more pixel perfect. And, and they did a great job. And then they added these little animations and things in. So
fancy.
And they have their own case studies because they're a development company. And one of the ways that they did that was to present kind of similar to what we're doing in a little more kind of formal setting of the challenge, the platform features that they were able to incorporate, their approach, and then some, you really don't get to the end till you see end result screenshots, right?
So in a way, we're showing off a case study that's part of a case study of a case study.
Yes, yes. It's very meta. It's gonna tear a hole in the universe.
I think so.
Okay. So let's get into the actual case study then. Any questions or anything?
So Greg is asking, I think this is a question. You show your designs to the client and they do not like it. They don't really say why. Maybe try to explain it, but they really don't make sense. Do you try to justify or explain why it does work? Okay, so I think I get it.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, if you get to a point where you've delivered finished work and the client really doesn't like it, I think sometimes that can mean you skipped a step in the process of going through design and keeping them on board with what you're doing, but not always. And actually, this project is a good example of that, because when I showed these, even though we'd done the mood boards and the logo and the wireframes, when I showed these to the client, the initial reaction that he had was, huh, that's not what I had in mind.
Oh, interesting.
And part of the reason was he had already taken the mood boards and the logo, and he had done his own designs.
Oh no. That's the worst.
Just for like starting to mock up some stuff, because he was kind of like, we need stuff now, you know,
Right.
we need collateral.
Okay.
And so he had taken it, and for example, this green color, which I was intending to use very sparingly, he had used it as a flood for everything. He used it as the main background color and put everything on top of this bright green.
Oh.
And so his initial reaction was that this wasn't what he had in mind, and maybe it was a little too sophisticated for them, or this or that. So I was able to talk with him about it, and also give him time to digest the design. So I was able to actually take one of the presentations he had made. I said, give me your presentation, your PowerPoint. Let me put it in the new style of this new brand. And I think you're going to be really happy with it compared to the old brand. And so I actually did that as an exercise. I took that and showed it. I didn't spin very long, but I applied all of the new design aesthetic, and he loved it. And so he switched his mind. He called me back, and he's like, okay, let's do it. Let's go for it. Like, let's move forward with the design.
That's really interesting.
It is partly your job as the designer to communicate with the client about why you made the decisions and why they're good decisions. And I think communication is undervalued in general in design.
Absolutely.
Like the best designers, I should say the most successful designers are not always the best designers, right?
Yes.
Like I would say my design work is good, but I wouldn't put it at like the very top tier, but I would say that I'm a very good communicator. So when I work with clients, I can give them really great proposals, I can do presentations. So that creative component can oftentimes get you jobs and clients that is not just because you're doing good work. It's in addition to the fact that you're doing good work, but just the good work alone may not have been able to land you, especially a bigger job.
Yeah, and without proper communication, that situation could have gone very badly.
Yeah, that's why it's a good example.
You could have been one of those designers who, and you know, maybe it wasn't like really ugly and grotesque, but you could have been one of those designers who said, okay, you know what, I'm gonna run with what you did, and we're gonna ship it.
Yeah.
And then it ships, people don't like it, they figure out who the designer is. Oh, it's Josh Iwata?
Right.
Nope,
yeah.
don't wanna hire him. He used that green background. Who does that?
Right. Yeah, exactly. So I think knowing how to handle and communicate is super important.
Yep.
So I set up a template for, where is it? Oh, I haven't opened it yet.
Oh no.
Open.
While you're finding it, Carlos is asking, what's the size of the artboard you recommend to design?
Well, I think it depends on the project, obviously. Adobe has really great starting templates, right? Like when you go File, New.
Right.
It'll recommend and let you choose the device, which is super great. So these different sizes for iPad, web, whatever. For this particular project, because we're designing it for Behance, Adobe recommends on their website that it should be a 1400 pixel canvas. Is that right?
I believe so.
believe
It's
so,
1400 to 1600, but I think it's 14.
I think it's 1400 pixels. So this template that I've set up is 1400 pixels wide. I've put a grid on here so that there's space on to the right and left. There's margins. I've put a grid that's, I think it's about, how do we get to full 100%?
Command 0,
what is it?
maybe?
So this is about 1050 of the grid size. It's 1050. And then I also put guides on the outside that give about 200 pixels of margin on either side.
Last time you were here, we didn't have guides.
I noticed
A
that.
lot has changed.
Yeah. I was like, what is this? Where did this come from?
Yeah.
Guides. So I think actually the guides are really important, especially in something like this, because what makes kind of interesting dimension and things on some of these Behance templates, or not templates, but case studies, is that you do have things that overlap and play with the background. And so having guides that give you a margin to not go beyond, as well as being able to do full background, as well as being able to stay within a grid, allows you 3 degrees of depth to play with. And so that's the way that this template has been set up.
Yep.
So we've got a basic header here. And this is set up to be kind of a simple example of the flow of creating a case study. You can get a lot more creative with this, but as a starting point, I think this is a decent way to go. So what I would do here would be the logo of the client, and then I would do an overview of kind of problem solution of that particular case. That could be 1 paragraph, it could be 2 paragraphs. You could break it up into the challenge and the solution, but I would kind of put it up here to talk about that problem that you're looking to solve. And then I also put the types of design services. So you could put, brand work and web design, or well, I'll fill it out here in a moment. And then I quite like when there's headers and there's sections for these case studies.
Absolutely.
It doesn't have to be as obvious as this, like section 1, section 2.
Right.
It can be, and I think that works really well too. But it should be something. It could be a header that says, the download session, or exploring the existing brand, or something that helps tell the story of that client. But I do think breaking up these long scroll infinite kind of page designs of Behance is really important, and it helps you or it helps the user and the browser figure out where they're at in the storyline of the case study that they're reading.
Yeah, and if any of you are looking for good examples of case studies, go to Behance, search anything, and then sort it by most appreciated. Because typically, not always, but typically those are the ones that are really in depth, that really show the entire process from start to finish. And what you will notice is that there are titles. Whether it's a direct title like that, or it's just some sort of very quick icon sometimes, but there's something to break up each and every, because we were talking earlier, I'm working on a case study now, and I'm trying to figure out exactly how to lay it out, because at one point in the case study, I want to show the current implementation of what they have in the app and what my implementation is. And if you don't really have proper titles, then it could look like I'm just copying what they already have, and it could get very confusing.
Yeah, it needs to be really structured, because you don't want to take credit for work that's not yours,
right.
And for before and afters. And
Terry's asking, how and what stage do you generate a video to show the client?
I think that totally depends on the project. So if you're working on a project that requires a lot of animation and interactive work, then you probably would do that at the design phase, but you might do interaction work even at the wireframe phase. But I would typically say it's further down the road. Is that what you would think too?
Typically, unless you're posting crazy stuff to Dribble, but but yeah, typically.
Yes, unless you want to do.
Because it kind of goes back to what you were talking about earlier. Is you want it fairly basic, especially like in the block framing phase. You don't want to distract the clients. You don't want to get them too excited about something that may not happen. You just want them to focus on the details, the structure of the page, and then eventually, as things get fleshed out, as things start to make more sense, then you'll kind of bring in some video, some fancy animations and things like that.
Yeah, but for me personally, when I do design work, I don't generate videos for clients.
Okay.
Unless I need to give them an update or something, and it works better than to do that than meet on video and screen share.
Yeah.
Okay, so this template has just a few different sizes for images. You can see I have like this kind of background image that goes beyond the grid that's kind of hovering there that you can play with. Another thing that's not on here, but I do see a lot of designers do, is they'll have even a 4th layer of kind of things that like hang out on top. So they'll be like, have these fun elements that kind of like float on top of things. Sometimes that's even like a photo of something, or it's a design or a zigzag or something. So I think that many times there's 4 dimensions. There's like the main background, like a smaller background, the main imagery that you're floating on top of that, and then like fun elements that kind of exist on top.
You got to be careful with those because sometimes they just get way too distracting.
I would agree.
Yeah.
Like sometimes
This isn't my space.
it can ouch. Yeah, sometimes that I think that can distract, and that's again that part of that one of those commandments, right? To let things breathe, not to have too much on the page. If the design is beautiful and you want them to be looking at it and involved in the details, like floating like a big coffee cup on top of it can be distracting. You don't need to do that.
Yep.
And then lastly, I have some wireframes of just basic device shapes if you want to use that. And people get all sorts of crazy with these like floating angled design mock-ups and isometric designs, which look really cool. Isometric designs are where you like take your design and you make it look like it's like laying down at an angle on like a 3D board. Those can be great, and I think there's been some really beautiful portfolios done that way. I would also say don't go, I would prefer not to go overboard too much with those because I've seen things like that where there's so many beautiful devices and like 3D layouts that the work itself, it doesn't really matter what you put in there. Like, oh, that's gonna look great.
Right.
And it detracts to me from the actual quality of the design work. Instead, you're looking at kind of the beautiful renderings of these different devices. I mean, what do you?
No, I completely, I love mock-ups, but I completely agree. If it's too isometric, if it's too whatever, it just gets lost in this like shiny device. And that's why you see all, for iPhones or Androids or whatever it might be, the marketing videos are these shiny devices that spin around. They have cool things inside of them. It almost takes you away from the actual design.
Yeah.
And, oh, look at this shiny device. I want this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's the end of this wireframe. I'm going to use this wireframe, though, as my starting point for my template. So I've got a blank canvas set up here with these same with the same dimensions. So it's 1400 pixels wide.
Yep.
I've got my grid, and then I've got, and this is a 12 column grid with 20 pixel gaps. And then I've got my guide set up over here. So I'm just going to start grabbing pieces of this from over here. So I'm going to take the header, I'm going to pull it over here, boop, and you'll see how having a starting point can be actually really useful.
Absolutely.
So I'll replace the logo with the real logo. If I can grab it.
And components also didn't exist when you were here last. Have you been using components a lot?
I have not actually been using components much. Have you done some streams on using components?
Yeah. I have some videos on Let's XD as well.
Oh, okay, I'll have to watch those.
And the cool thing about components is that like that one over there to the left, this one here, could be your master component of their logo. And you can resize the instances, you can override them. So if one version is a light version, one version is a dark version, but then you decide that maybe the code little bits and whatever they're called, the bits inside the B are rearranged.
Yeah.
Then you just have to do it once and they rearrange everywhere.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, it's like
across
symbols.
multiple documents even.
You can link them across documents.
Pretty amazing.
It's like symbols, but with overrides and resizability.
Wow.
Yeah.
So for this wireframe, I'm going to get a little more detailed. I'm not going to type a description, but I will say that we did branding. I'll just say branding and web design for now. Okay. Well, maybe I'll say brand positioning. Brand positioning, logo design, web design. Okay. I want to turn the opacity up a little bit on that.
For those taking part in today's challenge, you got about 30 minutes to submit it into Discord in the current challenge channel, and then we'll take a look at it shortly.
So I'm going to grab the section title.
Yep.
And then I'll grab this background layer too and bring those over. And so our first section I laid out here, these were the things that I did, and these are directly from my proposal basically. So I think I'm going to combine the first two, brand positioning. So brand positioning will be on its own. I'll combine logo design and mood boards, wireframes, and mockups. So these will be my sections basically. And just to make it simple, I'll number those. Section 1, Section 2, Section 3, Section 4. And really, to me, this is so helpful. And going through when I was going through all the different Behance examples, is my brain needs to figure out like what is the structure of these things.
Right.
What's the visual language being used? And when you break things down like this, it allows you to do it. And even though a client or a user or a viewer might not recognize that structure, inherently they will understand and appreciate that page a lot more than if there was no structure to it.
Yeah, I agree.
So I'm gonna just say brand positioning here. And again, you can get a lot more creative with these headlines. And then in this section, I had that document, right? All of the slides. So I think that I want to show some examples of these slides, but I only want to show a few because I don't want to eat up space on my design. So I'm going to take one of these images. I'm going to lay it out here so that you can see this eats up 6 columns, so half the grid. And I'm going to duplicate that. I'm going to show 2.5 slides. And one of the ways you can play with dimension is by having things actually like go off the screen, like they continue forever.
Yep.
So I'm going to take a third one and I'm going to put it here.
Fancy.
And it'll look like it's kind of, even though it's an image and it doesn't side scroll, it'll give the illusion of kind of.
But someone's going to just grab their finger and
they're going to try.
It's not moving.
You're not going to understand how Behance works. And then for this section, like this floating background area, I think I want to try to show more of these slides because I think they're interesting. And I'm going to do small versions of these back here in this background. Maybe I'll make them that big and then I'll use the repeat grid function. So if you're not familiar with this, it's pretty amazing. I think someone joked on one of my streams, like, take a drink every time he says repeat grid.
Yes, yeah.
But it's an awesome function,
That's great.
Or feature rather. So I grabbed
how
that.
it just perfectly lined up with your grid too.
I know. Yes, it's like it understands and knows what's going on. It's like it's sentient.
It's aware of everything.
And what's cool about, so I'm gonna actually have this go up to, I moved that was bad. I moved my guide on accident. I'm gonna have this go up to the edge. That guide looks wrong now. I think it is supposed to be 95. There we go.
You can lock your guides too if you
You
need
can?
to.
How do you do that? Can you tell me?
Under the view menu at the top, and then go down to guides, and then lock.
Lock all
There's
guides.
also a weird shortcut, but yeah.
So I'm gonna have these hanging out in the background. And I think I will shrink them down. So when you have use the repeat grid, it creates where if you move one of these, it moves everything, or if you resize one, it resizes everything. I don't want that anymore. I want these to be disconnected. So I'll say ungroup grid, and then I'll group them again so that I can resize the whole thing because I want it to fit within these new, the guides there. Okay, that's perfect. Well, now that I did that, maybe I should, do you think I should have this continue all the way out to follow these guys?
Oh, possibly.
Maybe.
Yeah, give that a shot. See what that looks like.
Maybe I'll just have it like that. I'll just leave it like that for now. Okay. So once I get to the design phase, I'm gonna, it's so satisfying, I'm not gonna do it now, but you know where you can grab a whole folder of images and just drop it onto that repeat grid?
Yeah.
And then it populates all of them?
Yeah, but did you undo until you had the repeat grid again? Because you broke it.
I did break it.
You did break it.
Yeah. I mean, darn.
So it wouldn't have worked.
Okay, there we go. It wouldn't have worked, you're right. Okay, so I'm gonna leave that there. These images will be populated at a later time. I'm also gonna make a design decision now, and I want this to be kind of part of this section here.
Ooh.
So that's gonna require me changing a couple things, dark to light.
And what made you make that decision?
Well, I think I want to blend. The brand positioning work to me is not really design work. It was thought work, you know? It was going through and working with the client. It's not something that I would always do. And so I want to include this in the header as part of kind of the before and after type scenario.
Right.
So I want to kind of include it in there. So I'll extend that header background down, and that'll help kind of pull these two sections together a little bit. And then I need to make my repeat grid fill not black because it's too hard to see. There we go.
Tim is saying repeat grid is better than sliced pizza. And Joe is saying repeat grid is better than pineapple on pizza. I don't know.
I would agree. Well, I don't know. Can you have pineapple?
If it's cooked, yeah.
Okay, all right.
And I do like pineapple on my pizza.
Another cool thing about repeat grid is you can, why can't I control the margins between?
You should be able to. If you have to click on the repeat grid.
Oh, there we go.
There you go, yeah.
If you hover over margin, you can squish it down or expand it really easily by hovering over the pink area. Okay, so I think this section will look cool. We'll have nice visuals, and it'll give you a good idea of highlighting like a few slides and then showing kind of the depth of the work by having all the slides in the background there. I think it's a nice kind of trick to play with your backgrounds and show behind the scenes stuff without making it overwhelming.
Totally. Now everyone's going to argue about pineapple on pizza.
Yeah, we're just talking about pineapple.
Jesse says we're a monster. Sorry, Jesse.
Okay, so for my next section, logo design and mood boards. Okay. Also, I want, if anyone hasn't used this little tool called the Little Ipsum, I love this tool. It just gives you lorem ipsum text, and it lets you grab, as much as you want. 1 sentence, 2 sentences, a paragraph.
Oh, that's cool.
And then you can just paste them in. Does Adobe have, is there actually a tool like that already?
It's not native, but there is a plugin that can do it. And it basically fills it in based on your area text or area text size.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
and you can put periods, you can put line breaks and that sort of thing.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So for this section, I'm gonna do, we had all of the, here we'll say branding.
Look at all that white space.
Right.
I love it.
So look, there's this gap. There's this weird void with no content called white space.
And that's difficult to get to because, like, so many designers are not used to doing that.
Mm-hmm.
So they're afraid to put that much space because they just figure, no, they're going to see this and it's going to be the end and everyone's going to like leave.
Yeah.
But that's not the case. Just
no. People actually know how to scroll these days.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna do kind of a similar thing. On these screens you saw here, oops, wrong one. In my logo concepts, I have all of these screens, right? And I wanna show some examples of these, even though they're ones that we didn't choose, just to show some of the rejects, I guess. So I'm gonna do a similar thing. I'm gonna repeat grid here. Let's show this many and this many. And then I'm gonna reduce this so that these are all kind of butted up against each other. I think that'll be interesting. I guess I should have made this, how do I make these fit perfectly? If I wanted them to get between my guides, you can't resize the whole repeat grid without losing the functionality of the repeat grid, right?
Well, yeah. You'd have to resize one of the elements and then adjust the padding.
I see. Okay, so I'd have to do something like that, and then fill this guy.
Yeah.
Oh, there we go. Look at that. Okay, cool. So I'm gonna do that and that.
So Carlos is asking, do you usually make some drafts by hand or do you put your ideas directly on the computer?
I do typically sketch some things out on hand or by hand. Not all the time, but many times I do, especially with logos. With logos, I inevitably will do some drawings by hand. With this kind of stuff, I'm so comfortable using the computer that I don't find that I really need to when it comes to layout work, that kind of thing. But I think it's really, if you want to do it by hand, you want to do it on the computer, doesn't necessarily matter. It's just the idea that you are doing those early sketches and wireframes because that's just the planning process to get to a good solution. So I'm going to put some examples of the branding work here, and I'm going to be kind of It's going to be kind of fun, so I'll put some like slashes through things. Be like, no, that one was no good. To show there was kind of a decision-making process going on here. Okay. Oops. Okay, we'll put some slashes through things.
And those are just randomly thrown in there?
Yeah, I mean, we'll do it properly once we pull in the actual graphics, right?
Yeah.
And then I'm going to go over here and grab a big image. So this is where I'll present the actual logo. So I'll put the full logo here.
And aside from the slashes, is there anything else you're going to add that will tell viewers that these are the rejected logos and this is the final logo? Or does the hierarchy and the size of that logo, the big logo, kind of tell the story by itself?
Yeah, I think that's kind of the key thing, is it does tell the story by itself. So if you have things in here through this process that are small and kind of like exploratory, and also this text will help. When they go from here to the big logo, it's gonna kind of intuitively make sense, right?
Yep.
So I do have the logo, so I'll actually grab that. I'll put it down here. Oops. If anyone from XD is listening, if I hold down Shift and I grab that, I would expect it to scale.
Oh, okay.
In proportion.
Yeah, it only does it on the side, on the corners.
Right.
You can also turn on, if you click on the logo, if you turn on the lock on the right.
Oh, I didn't have the lock on.
That should do it.
Okay. User error. Then I don't have to hold down Shift for anything.
Right.
Okay.
But you're right. If you hold down Shift, you would expect it to.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to put the logo there, and then, oops, let's see. It's another little tool I really love.
Joe was saying this is not a true Pinsky live stream. Are you still going on about the pineapple on pizza, or is this something else? Because Joe is not in favor of pineapple on pizza.
Nope, no pineapple on pizza.
I think I'm losing viewers.
By the minute.
Oh, you need me to boop. I did a boop earlier.
What's a boop?
Whenever you like press repeat grid or do something like. Boop.
You have to say boop?
Yeah.
Boop. Okay.
It's a rule.
Okay, I'll try and get one in there.
Yeah, it's my thing.
Oh, I don't want to steal it from you.
No, it's fine.
You have to pay you royalties every time someone boops. A fairy gets its wings and you have to pay Howard Pinsky royalties. Okay, so I'm also going to put behind here, just to make it a little more interesting, I'm going to put, I don't know what, but I'll put some sort of a background element to add some dimension. So here I'm going to show the logo. Let me turn off these grids for a minute. They can get kind of distracting.
Svetlana is asking if you were able to share the link to this template.
I will share the link, or Howard will share the link. It is not live on my website yet, but I can put it up there if people would like this template sometime tomorrow.
Val doesn't like pineapple on pizza.
Man, we're still talking about pineapple.
I know. That's all we're going to talk about today.
This is very, it's the internet now. Yeah. Okay, so I know for my branding section, again, it's not really important what exactly is going to go there yet, because I'm in the wireframing section, stages. This should be number 2, by the way. Oops. But I know something's going to go here. I'm going to show some examples of the logo and the logo being used. And now we're going to move on to the third section, which, if we look at our little guide here, is wireframes. Okay. I got to turn my guides back on. And last time I was here, you taught me that if you just double-click anywhere on the artboard, it brings up the options here, which I've been using that a lot.
And I think there's a shortcut for the layout grid as well. It's like command quote, or that little thing, possibly.
To turn it on and off?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, wait, what is it?
I think it's command, that one? Aha, there it is.
Wait, how do I make it come back?
Oh no.
Shouldn't it be the same hotkey?
I think you broke it.
Oh God. Show layout grid. Oh, you have to hold down Shift to bring it back. Why wouldn't it just be the same?
There it goes. So I guess that one, the other one is the square grid.
Okay.
Okay, so it probably turns off the layout grid, turns on the square grid. So it's command Shift and then.
Yeah.
What do you call that thing? Boop.
Is that a proper use of boop? I don't know. I don't think it was. Okay, so this section is going to be section 3. It's going to be showing wireframes. I'm gonna grab this background image too. Again, I don't know exactly what it's gonna be, but I wanna show a bunch of these kind of, especially in XD, you can make wireframes and then you can prototype and you have all the little connection points.
Yeah.
The orange squigglies that go everywhere. I think that is, I did not develop the Panera Bread logo, unless you did. Did you do that?
I did not.
I did, that was on my portfolio at one point. I don't think it is anymore. Oh, their logo is on my is in my portfolio of clients I've worked with, because I did work with them on a mobile app.
Oh, okay.
I'm like, wait a second.
I thought you were
how
just
did
taking
know?
credit for designing their logo.
No. Yeah, by the way, the logos on my website in the gray area near clients I've worked with, those are just client. I did not design Adobe's logo or Porsche's logo, but I did work with both of them. Okay, so for wireframes, again, the reason having these like 3 basic layers is great is like, I just know I want something in that background layer. It doesn't need to know what it is.
Val's not a big fan of you right now. You just told Josh about the boop, and now you're telling me.
I was just asking Howard about the proper use of the boop.
I'm going to create a brand guideline for the boop.
Yeah, you need a brand book for the book, the boop. Okay.
A boop book.
There's me telling Howard again what he should be doing with his boop. Sorry, it's your boop. It's your choice. Okay, so wireframing section, I want to show like the coolness of all the squigglies and everything in wireframes. And then I do want some larger images of the wireframe. So I'll probably let it show up here. And then I'll have a few versions of the wireframes. I'm doing these with like a 50 pixel spacing between them. And the thing when you design any of this stuff, you're gonna have to keep making your artboard longer and longer.
Yeah.
The actual guidelines for the Behance sizing said 1400 pixels by infinite.
Really? You can do that? Okay.
By infinite, although they do suggest that you break up your image into multiple images.
Right, because the longer it'll be the file, wow.
Yeah.
The larger the file size, which
Yes.
you probably don't want.
No, you don't want that.
No.
Okay, so wireframes, I'm gonna put here. I'm gonna try something that I haven't really done before. I wanna make a grid behind this section because it's kind of the, you know, it's like the blueprint section.
Oh, interesting.
But I'm gonna try to do it with repeat grid.
Ooh.
But I want it to be like a paper grid. So just the lines. So I'm gonna go like this.
Oh, like those
you know
blue
what I'm saying?
lines that
Yeah.
we've all used in school.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do this, and then I'm gonna put this down to like -1, so they overlap. And then I'm gonna put this down to like -1, so that overlaps. And then I'm gonna turn the fill off, and look at that.
Ooh, look at that.
Watch this.
You're getting fancy.
This is gonna be really satisfying, because I'm gonna grab that, and I'm just gonna pull that out. And we've got grid for days. Look at that. Beautiful. Okay. This is not gonna sit on top of everything. So I'll send it to the back. Command-Shift, left bracket. Is that right? Did I not do it?
Yeah, it should be. No, yeah. It probably
Oh, it
might
is
be
in the back.
but
It's just too dark.
because of the lines and all that fun stuff.
Okay,
It's hard
so
to.
let's make it really,
Yeah.
let's make it super light. Oops. What just happened?
Apparently, I'm engaged in indiscriminate booping.
Oh, I found something that'll slow XD down.
Oh no! What'd you do?
I made a grid with, 1,000 squares on it, and then tried to change the color of all of them at once.
Oh, interesting.
I didn't like that.
Oh, there you go. There's
Okay.
always something.
Let's turn our layout off, and then we'll see. Okay, well that could look interesting. I don't know if we'll keep it, but it's interesting, nonetheless. Okay,
It could work.
It could work.
Now,
It
would
could work.
you keep the very straight line at the top, or would
Yeah.
you somehow break it up and have some like curvy thing or
That's
bits
funny,
that are
that's-
floating around?
Oh man, I broke repeat grid.
Oh, no.
It's not giving me handles. There's no
Because you
handles.
insulted my booping.
It is. I would
Oh,
probably.
the handles are only on the right and the bottom.
They're not on the top?
No.
Oh, interesting. So if I want to move this Okay, so what I probably will do, and I could do it now since Howard wants to get fancy now, is I would do like a gradient to like make this grid kind of, to soften it a bit, oops. I'd do a linear gradient. I'd grab the color of the background and then the color of the background. And then I'll turn the transparency down on one of these. You see there? Why is it not, interesting. Well, we'll fix that later, but. It's interesting, it uses the grade look, it's different.
It does look different.
Even though I'm sampling right from.
You chose the right one? Right little node dot thing?
Yeah, let's see, fill. So you can see these two layers, one's darker, one's lighter. I sample the background.
And select the other one too? Oh, I guess you did, right? Yeah.
Let's do this one, and that makes it darker.
Oh yeah.
This one, lighter.
That's interesting.
It could be a transparency issue, maybe. I don't know. We'll figure it out. But
You're
let
just
me
breaking
send
XD
this.
today.
Yeah, apparently. So that is supposed to be a smooth fade, but it's not right now.
Catch the whoa. What does that mean?
Who wrote that?
Sarah wrote that.
Like this? You're supposed to do that. My kids taught me that.
Oh, okay.
They go, Dad, catch the whoa. And I'm like,
Ah.
whoa. Then you throw it to someone else.
Oh, I didn't know
I
that.
think my children just made Sarah do that. That just made me nervous. I'm like, oh,
Nice.
I don't know how to whoa. Okay. You'll learn soon. Your
I
daughter
probably
will
will,
be.
yeah. She'll get
No,
into
they won't
that
be.
soon.
They won't be woeing when your daughter's, old enough to woe. Okay, so let's get our last section. I'm gonna bring back my. How did I do that? This. Shortcuts are glorious. The last section is the mockups. I shouldn't need to really look that up. Okay. Section 4. How many minutes do I have here? 6 minutes.
We have 6 minutes until we take a look at challenge design. So get those into Discord.
Okay. Will I have more time after that, or is that it?
Yeah, you will. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, depending
okay.
on how many we have. Usually we don't get too many because people are still working on it throughout the day. But we'll have 15 minutes or so afterwards.
Okay. Great. So for design mockups, I think I would like to, now that I'm rethinking these wireframes, these are long, and I want them to be bigger and longer, because that's really where you see the work is in these kind of like longer mockups.
Right.
So I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna make these like bigger and longer, and I'll do full on, screen grabs of those. Okay, so that'll be cool. And then for the design mockup, that's kind of the big reveal. And again, as Howard kind of pointed out, the scale of things, how big things are, can kind of show their dominance on the page and how important they are. So I'm gonna take an image here, and I'm gonna go beyond the bounds of the grid all the way to the guide, so that these initial design mockups, when you get to them, are really big and bold and pretty. So I'm gonna fill this space more so than I've been doing with these other ones, right? So we'll start off with some really big, I'm gonna zoom out a little, big mockups. And I think I'm gonna kind of mix in here half-sized ones. Oops. So you'll go big and you'll see all the details, and then you'll see some of the like side-by-side lengthwise ones that are a little bit bigger, longer rather. And then we'll do another big one here, since this is what people want to see, is that finished, polished design. And then how many you do? I mean, that's kind of a hard question. I think
That's true, because you can do like all the different pages, but
you could keep going.
what do you focus on?
Yeah, right. And so I find one of the things that I will say is that when people on their Behance case studies will take the entire design of a website page and they put it in without any bounds, so it's not in a box or a frame or anything.
Right.
And it's just edge to edge like this. So it's like you're just viewing the website itself. To me, it can get a little confusing as to like, what you're looking at, because suddenly you've been in this case study and then suddenly you're at full screen with a whole new website. So I think you have to be careful about how you keep your layers and how you present them. Do you know what I mean?
I do.
Some of these?
Yeah.
It kind of is a little disorienting, I guess. So I like to keep a little bit of frame around the mockups that I'm showing so they still feel like, for the user, that they're oriented in my case study.
Yep.
And we're just looking at these things that are bigger and bolder. So the bigger shots, I think you want to focus on, design elements that you really like in certain pages. There's some pages that are not going to be as interesting.
Right, like the About page. You probably don't need that.
Yeah.
Unless it's a really cool About page with great imagery, but it's probably boring.
Yeah, exactly. And actually for here, I think it would be interesting to do I'll kind of do a little subframe. Oops. I'll put some elements of pages on here. So they won't be like a full mock-up, but they'll be basically clips of things that I really like about the design, and I'll put them in here. So that could be a design detail that, that you're proud of in the end design. If I look at some of these, let's see, design mockups. There's certain things that I like the way they turned out. This little section with the detail here and the boxes that are floating. Like aesthetically, I just like the way that turned out. So I'm probably gonna grab some of these design components and these little pieces that are part of the overall design language, and I'll put them into the design, even though I don't wanna show this whole page, because that could be a little redundant, right?
There's a lot going on.
There's a lot going on.
A lot of those sections are kind of repeating over and over and over again. You probably don't have to have all of that.
Yeah, exactly. And so I'll probably go through here tomorrow and I'll pick little pieces, little icons that I want to present. And I'm going to represent that right now by showing that these are kind of images within a bigger layout, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I want to steal that mountain though. The mountain is kind of I don't know why it's become the universal symbol for image.
I don't know, but it works.
Okay, so I'll put some design components in here. That'll end. Okay, so I think that'll display a decent amount of the finished design work.
Yep.
With these kind of...
They're still talking about pineapple on pizza.
Oh my God.
I can't stop laughing.
What's the latest on pineapple?
So Kevin likes it. And I think earlier he said that
is
pineapple
Kevin driving
is
all
his
of
friends.
This? Oh.
So
okay.
Yeah, Joe is saying that memory of your dead friends. Things are getting dark.
Whoa, it's getting dark, yeah.
Val doesn't like it.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right,
We can't be friends anymore.
I'm gonna finish off the design mock-up with...
Oh, you know what? We're gonna take a break.
Okay.
And we're gonna jump over to Discord over here on my lovely screen. And we're gonna see, I don't know how many entries we have, but we're gonna take a look. And we're gonna dive into some of these. So again, the challenge today, and we can probably take a look at challenges from both. But today was to use plugins to design a recipe collection app curated from top chefs around the world. Sounds delicious. And yesterday was like a smart home light experience, which was kind of fun. Peter did a really good job with that. So let's see what we have. That's not it. Discord. There we go. All right, so Julia has posted, this one's from yesterday, I believe, but that's fine. We'll take a look at it. Oh, Behance just spazzed.
This is a home recipe app.
So this one from yesterday, which was the lights and the smart home experience.
Oh, sorry.
Experience.
Okay.
So it looks like she's already putting together some sort of a design system at the top, which is nice. Ooh, very bright, very radiant.
Nice, yeah.
Let me go ahead and click on this so we can see the whole thing.
There's a video of it, yeah.
Yep. Let's see what happens.
Oh, nice. Cool animation.
Mm-hmm.
your
Change
device.
speaker.
Okay.
Just keeps going.
Oh, got it.
She really
okay.
went in
oh,
depth
wow.
with this.
Yeah, very.
Oh, so I'll just point out right there. There was a little bit of the drag issue. It's likely that the layer names across both of those artboards didn't match up. That's why it transitioned instead of actually dragged. So just be aware of that the layer names, and sometimes even the layer position have to be the same.
Well, this is a, yeah, it's an in-depth mock-up.
Ooh,
It's
fancy.
awesome.
Glow. Changes color. All right.
Nice. Is that it?
I think so.
Awesome.
Yeah, that was in depth.
Yeah.
But that
very.
was really nice. She's got some colors down here, some
Oh, I see.
rainbow gradients,
Got the mood board going on.
icons. Wow. All right. Yeah, I think with just a little bit of design polish, I think this could go a long way.
Yeah, I would agree.
Yeah, things like the font. Avenir is a great font, but I think in some where was it? There was a certain area that stood out to me. I think it was right here. Maybe it's the size of this text or the weight of the text. Something is throwing me off. I can't really nail it, but something's throwing it off.
It's a very thin font.
Yeah, maybe bold
And
it
with
a little bit.
black and white, when it's just a binary color scheme, basically, it could be a little difficult to read at smaller sizes if it's super thin and black on white or white on black kind of. I would say too, some of the consistency with the buttons, it would be good. There was one of the screens where you're choosing light or sound, and it didn't look like there were buttons. It just looked like two words with like a line dividing them. But in other sections, it did look like buttons. So I think you've got to be somewhat consistent with your buttons and navigation.
Yeah.
I mean, there's nothing else to click on, so it's somewhat obvious, you know. But yeah, I think overall the structure was really good and made a lot of sense.
Yeah.
I'd love to see that logo though with, if you did a smooth gradient, rainbow gradient, or maybe less than rainbow, maybe 3 colors, and then you did a masking of that smooth gradient with the words on top of it. It'd be a little like an easy transition from letter to letter to letter.
That could be interesting. Yeah. And we have to remind ourselves that this is only, like, Julia probably just did this yesterday.
Wow.
So all of this was done in a day, maybe a day and a half.
That's pretty impressive.
This is really good. It's good stuff.
Really nice.
All right, let's see what else we have. We've got double UT. This was from, which one was this? I'm not sure. We'll find out.
We're still talking about pineapple. Great.
Oh, of course.
Adobe now, the logo looks like a pineapple. Apparently.
Ooh, this was fancy. There's a little bit of animation at the beginning.
Yeah.
Click on that. What happens? Click? No? Maybe? Click? No? You drag.
Slide.
Okay, so I would say there's no indication that
there's a little tiny bit of the pedestal sticking out, but it's not obvious enough.
Yeah, I would either add some arrows or I would move that one over to the right a little bit inward so you kind of know, because I wasn't too sure. But now you can drag.
Oh, nice.
Basement, okay. Can you go, okay. Oh, you can click.
Oh, cool.
What else can you can probably drag this out. Ooh, look at
oh,
that.
Nice.
That's fancy.
That is really fancy.
All right. I'm not sure why the 50% is moving. So maybe make sure that the layers are all, but that's a minor issue. We turn the sound off. Woo! That was fancy.
Cool.
Okay. Unmute. Nice. I think that's it.
Yeah, that's great.
Really neat.
Very, very simple.
Yeah.
I like the visual representation of the kind of speaker filling up as you turn the volume up.
Yeah. Yeah, so just definitely for this first artboard, make sure some sort of indication of that it's a drag experience, because I wasn't too sure. But yeah, really nice stuff. Next, we've got This is just a single image, I think. All right.
Color, hue. Oh, so it's just changing the color of the light?
I think so.
Is that a light above it?
Yeah.
Huh.
Okay.
Okay, cool.
This is Gummy Panda. I love his name. Or her name.
Gummy Panda.
Smart speaker device list.
Oh,
All right, let's go
Gandalf.
ahead. It's a video.
Oh, okay, here's the
Aha.
here's the full thing. Nice. Oh, I see. It's if you own the what is that device called? That's the Amazon Echo.
Yeah.
Dot, yeah. Oh, that's cool. Okay, so volume there, light there,
Neat.
record and settings.
Okay.
Yeah, it's
cool.
clean. It's nice.
I'm not sure what the. I don't have an Echo.
I don't either.
Or a Dot or whatever this is called. I'm not sure what the record button does. Does it just like listen to your voice? Is that what it does? Possibly.
Maybe. Yeah.
Maybe.
It records everything you say. I would say too that the weight of the 3 buttons plus the volume button, you kind of want a hierarchy with the buttons of what gets used the most, as well as balance. You know, I mean, so right now it's kind of everything's bright white and circular. There could be a way to, if the settings don't get used very often, to have those in another place, to have the lighting more near the light and the volume more near the volume. And
Right.
so I think there's some layout improvements you could make to create some more visual hierarchy. But overall, it looks really clean.
Yeah, I think in an app like this, less is more. So yeah, throw the settings in a menu somewhere, unless the settings are something you have to go into all the time. And if that's the case, you probably want to reevaluate what information you're showing on the main screen. But yeah, throw the settings somewhere else. The record button, without knowing exactly what it does, you might be able to move it somewhere. And then light was probably one of the main focuses.
Yeah. But I do like how multiple people are doing. As the slider moves, you're getting responsive animations, happening to indicate what's happening in the real world. It's really cool.
Let's see. Day 1 challenge. All right. Ooh. This looks kind of cool. I would love to see this. Who is this? Grace. I would love to see this on a Behance page because it's kind of small on Discord.
Yeah.
But I'm kind of liking where this is going, especially because it's space related.
You just saw NASA and you're like, oh yeah.
I know. I just love space stuff.
This is a little rocket ship to change the volume button, so it's themed. I see.
Interesting.
Interesting.
I'm assuming that's a smart light or smart speaker or smart something or other. I don't know how it. I would love to know the story behind this. Like, how does it relate to NASA? What do you do with it? Does it make rocket noises when you turn it on or something? I need more information on this.
Maybe this is the smart system in the International Space Station.
Maybe,
Yeah.
but it will not work outside the International Space Station because sound does not work up there. All right, let's do 2 more, maybe 3 more. Let's see what this one is. All right. This I'm assuming is a drag. Okay.
Okay, volume.
That's
Yeah,
kind of neat.
It's cool.
Very nice. And then what else can you do? I'm trying to see the hotspots. Is that it? No. Oh, add at the top.
Oh,
Ooh.
that's
No
fancy.
device. That's sad. All right, I think that's it. But that was kind of cool.
Yeah. I like those full screen transitions. It's
Yeah.
nice.
All right. Thoughts?
I think, well, there's a lot of colors going on. One thing I would say is you got to be careful. Just as I said, I like the sliders showing what's happening in the real world.
Right.
For this particular example, though, it looks like you're making the speaker glow red. And so,
Oh.
versus volume. And so I think finding another way to represent volume when you also have to adjust the color of the speaker. I think there's an idea in design called progressive disclosure also, where you kind of just show what you need to see at the time you need to see it.
Yeah.
I think that could work well for things like presets and colors too, because having everything on the page plus the speaker glow plus the color of the light can be a little busy and a little overwhelming, and it detracts from the kind of sleek, dark aesthetic that you have that's otherwise pretty monochromatic. So
Yep, I agree. And this is kind of cool.
yeah, that is cool though.
Alrighty. Let's go Fernando, or A Fernando, or what was that? A Fernando LS. Pioneer, okay. Oh,
Ooh.
got some skeuomorphism
Skeuomorphism.
going on.
Do you think it's going to come back? Is it making its way
I think
back
it
a
might
little
come
bit?
back, but not to the level of like iOS. What was it,
The
3
Notes
or
app
4?
and
Or,
there
Yeah.
won't be a green felt on everything.
oh, I hope not. Okay, what did that do? I don't know what that
I
did.
think you're turning those on and off.
Oh, okay.
Maybe.
I was just, yeah, that makes sense.
But I assume that they
expecting-
are. What are they? Are they lights in your house or?
They might be. I don't know.
Yeah. So if those are representing lights, smart lights that are connected, I think you'd need to probably label those.
Yeah. Or maybe it's changing the color of the speaker light.
Oh, okay. Could be. It's hard with all of these smart devices. You don't know
Right.
what exactly. Some of them have lights, some of them are volume only, but it's an interesting design. I mean, that big is, as much as skeuomorphism isn't necessarily something that I use very often, it is kind of appealing to see a nice big chunky
I know.
metal element on the page that you can mess with there.
It's kind of nice. It's satisfying.
Yeah.
All right,
Cool.
we'll do one more, then we'll hop back over to you. This one is from Yuri. All right, so living room,
Okay,
kitchen.
Speaker systems.
So I'm assuming this is the living room, this is the kitchen.
Yeah. Oh, I see. And then you've got, you can control them there. Oh, similar to the other one we looked at.
Got it, okay.
And
It's
those
hard to tell
buttons,
exactly-
It is very
yeah.
hard to see what's happening.
Yeah,
It's in contrast to the other one where we saw this kind of bar filling up. The color change isn't really, it doesn't, it's not immediately indicative of what's happening, right?
Right.
You're like, is it hot, cold?
yeah, same thing with the kitchen.
Yeah. So I would say you got to make those types of transitions really obvious. Just gonna find anything?
Fail, nothing.
That always fails.
No more speakers, all right. Oh,
Oh, we got a broken
Oh, we got a
infinite
lot.
loop.
yeah, we've run into a loop. Oh well. All right,
Oh, pretty.
yeah, nice gradient.
Cool. Yeah.
Awesome. All right. So that, well, there's a menu. Menu. Okay.
Okay.
Cool. All right. So let's hop back over to your screen. We will be looking at more challenge entries tomorrow for day number 3, or
Yeah.
if day number 2 you're still working on that, we'll take a look at those as well. But we have about 10 minutes. Let's
Okay.
wrap things
Great.
up.
I see the comments. Kevin says, only show your process to clients, otherwise people will just take your stuff and take away your clients too. I'm not sure if Kevin's being facetious or if he really thinks that, but I would say that for sure that's definitely not the mantra that Adobe is taking, considering we're showing the process of everything we're doing right now. And I actually don't think that's true. I mean, if the only thing separating your work from someone else stealing your clients is the transparency of your product or of your process, then maybe you don't have a big enough moat around what you're doing. But I think actually showing your process, the design community is actually not big enough. You know, there's so much work out there, and there's actually the designers doing really great work. There's not enough of them, so there's lots of pie to go around. I wouldn't worry about that. You know, at least I've never been worried about that.
Yeah, and the process can only go a long way, or so
Yeah,
far.
yeah,
You still
exactly.
have to have the talent. You still have to be a good designer, because a random person on the street can have the exact process that Josh is working off of after watching this stream. But if they can't actually design,
Right.
it's
Yeah.
not going to really get you far.
And as we saw with the design thinking, like pretty much any process any designer uses is some sort of variation of that. So it's really not going to be radically different than what most designers are already doing. Okay, so we've got our case study layout. We've got section 1, which is brand positioning. Section 2, branding. Section 3, wireframes, with our repeat grid that broke the Adobe XD, and then design mockup. So we'll have a nice big mockup here, 2 side-by-sides, and then components of design. And then at the very bottom, I would like to put, I'm going to put a device down there since we don't have anything down there yet. I'll grab this guy. Is this, yeah. I'll put a big screen at the bottom, and we'll find a glossy mock-up to kind of cap things off. Okay. So we'll put this down here, and maybe since we started the design with this dark header, maybe we'll end it with that too, to kind of cap it off and
that makes sense.
Bring a design element to full circle. Okay. So we'll put that there. Oops. Send it to the back. Not exactly sure what we're going to do with this, but we'll make it work. Okay. So I think that is a pretty decent, I'm going to zoom out so we can kind of see the whole thing. It's a pretty decent overall layout.
And this, once everything is populated and all the images are there, you would just export this massive image and upload it to Behance, or would you split this up?
I would split it up per, Adobe's recommendations. It'll make it load faster.
Right.
If you can do chunk by chunk. You can do it all at once, and a lot of people do that.
I've noticed that, yeah.
But I would tend to, it'll look like one continuous image, but I would probably break it up just for the sake of load times, so people all over the world can enjoy it. So I'm gonna hit play here, which I think is a really cool feature of Adobe. It lets you have a viewport, so you can kind of remove yourself from XD and all the tools, and you can just see it as if someone was flowing, right? Got our branding section, which, again, one section kind of leads you into the next. So we see kind of the early work, and then we see the finished product, and then we see it applied to different scenarios, maybe different colors, or maybe in a mock-up, which leads us down into the wireframes. We're going to show kind of overview work with some of the connecting points and a zoomed out view. And then we'll see detailed, kind of these long scroll details of the wireframes. We'll get into design mockups, which we've now widened the viewport kind of for everybody to these even bigger, more dramatic shots of our work. We'll do a nice big one there, probably the home page, since that's kind of the most dramatic one. And then we'll do side-by-sides, and then we'll do some nice, sexy design elements here, and then finish it off with a glossy device mock-up here at the bottom.
Fancy. That's looking good.
Okay.
And it feels like it flows well too.
Yeah, I think that's what's important with kind of viewing it in the viewport and just hitting the play on there, is it really does help with that. I'll say, just as a quick little mention too, initially when I had played this, I had the viewport put on, it was like the full height of everything. So it was, I think you change it here, right?
Yep.
It was at like 5,000 or something like that. So when I went to hit play, it looked like that.
Right, you saw the whole thing.
Which is super annoying. I didn't know how to fix that. I had to look that up. So if you click on your artboard and then you change the viewport to something more reasonable, like 1,000, you'll be able to view it the way I just did, which was comfortably on the screen.
Yeah.
Right?
And you can also drag, once you're able to see it, you can drag that little blue handle on the left up or down to change the...
Oh, right. It shows you here now, right? So you could move that, and if I hit play, it's going to be a smaller viewport. Yep. Cool. Let's put that back at 1,000. So I'm not going to start into the design mockup since we're nearing the end, but I want to go over and show you guys how I get ready for the case study to start dropping images in and playing with design elements. So in Adobe XD, there's a great feature where it lets you export all of your artboards as files. So you can just go File, Export All Artboards. And all the artboards in that particular file will be exported as individual images. So I've done that, and you can change the format from PNG to, or if you want to put them into PDFs or JPEG. And I've used it to present to clients and send them a PDF of all the designs too, which is really useful. So I've done that with each of these different files rather. And I've organized those into these folders. So I have images.
You're so organized. Mine would just be all over the desktop.
Well, yeah. I mean, but if you were streaming, then
That's true.
you would pretend like you were organized like I do. So I've got graphics that I might want to use, and clippings that I've taken, just screen grabs from the designs. And then I've also just exported each and every one of the slides, because I think that's part of the fun of once you have your wireframe set up, is you can start dropping in different images and move them around and see how they work, right? And then I've done these full-scale mock-up exports. So I've got mock-ups of each of these, and those are at full size. So
Right.
I'll be able to drop those into the design and use them how I want, if I want to have them zoomed out or zoomed in. And then I've also got slides exported from my presentation. And then I've got each of the wireframes. So this becomes really the library that you're going to be working from once you get into the case study. And I would say, if you're overwhelmed with how to structure your case study to begin with, this is even an easy starting point. Go into the work that you've already done, open up all the files in kind of an exploded view, and then just start exporting and taking screenshots of each of those things. And once you have that library, you'll have everything in front of you like this. And to me, that can lead to being able to start thinking about how you want to structure the flow of that. For me, I had a proposal, so it was already laid out. But if you could see, if I would have just went in and started grabbing screenshots of all the different sections, I basically have built the structure for my case study right here.
Right.
I've got the logo concepts, the mock-ups, the slides, and the wireframes, which more or less have become the 4 different sections of my case study.
Yep.
Right.
But now within Adobe XD and your mock-ups and your wireframes, now you're actually putting some flow to it.
Yes.
Other than just throwing up all the information on a single Behance page, which has no structure at all.
Yeah.
Starting to make some sense now.
Yeah, that's right. The other thing that I do as well is I will go and collect inspiration. So I'll show you, this is like a small sampling, but I'll just go and start collecting screenshots from Behance of things that I like, and putting them into a file. And with no artboard, I'll just dump everything in there. And then it gives me kind of ideas to play with, where I've seen that I like the way someone did something. It also lets you start to interpret kind of the visual language of what you're trying to create.
Right.
And so you can see with some of these examples, a lot of these case studies will use the logo at the top with some sort of a bold header that kind of leads you down into it. They'll use the layering that I'm talking about. It's really apparent here. So you see that background layer, which is a circle, which makes it interesting. You see the device layer on top of that, and then you see the UI layer on top of that.
Yep.
And the text floats kind of somewhere in between all of those, right? You can see that they're doing that kind of same thing with a lot of these. That background layer kind of anchors the page, but it allows the devices to have dimension on top of them, right?
That's really cool. And again, just go to Behance, sort by most appreciated,
Yes.
and you'll find a lot of stuff like this. And that tomato is kind of like what you were talking about earlier with the little floating elements all over the place.
And how that they can be really cool, but they can also be kind of distracting if
That's
they're
true.
overused.
Yeah,
right?
I'm sure you'll talk more about that tomorrow.
Yeah.
But that'll do it for today. This was fun, and I think tomorrow's going to be even cooler once you actually start putting this on Behance and making things look really nice.
Yeah.
Alrighty.
Great.
So thanks so much for joining us, everyone. Jennifer, Bobby, Joe, Kevin, except those who don't like pineapple on pizza. And we will see you tomorrow.
Thanks. Bye.